Usually, when we evaluate value, whether we're looking at a piece of real estate or, just picking up produce at the grocery store, there's this baseline expectation of immediate visual feedback.
Right. Like you want to see what you're getting right then and there.
Exactly.
Wow.
You look at an apple, it's bright red, it's shiny, and you immediately think, that's a good apple. The transaction is completely transparent to you.
The value is just, well, it's entirely present in the physical form at that very moment. What you see is the entirety of what you're evaluating.
Yeah, your eyes are giving you all the necessary data to make a decision, but then you step into certain, I don't know, highly specialized subcultures, and suddenly that whole system of visual evaluation is just turned completely upside down.
Oh, for sure. It's like you're suddenly speaking a different language.
Right. We find ourselves looking at a landscape where the current appearance tells you, frankly, absolutely nothing about the actual inherent value of the thing you're observing.
You really have to rely on a specialized literacy rather than just, raw visual input. Because if you don't have that literacy, you are going to misjudge almost everything in front of you.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are heading into an environment you might not expect to be a profound teacher of life lessons, which is your local aquarium shop.
Yeah, not the usual place you go for philosophy, right?
Not at all. Specifically, we are dissecting this really fascinating excerpt from a blog called Notes on Fishkeeping. It's written by an author named Eng.
And this is a very fresh source, too.
It is. This specific entry, part 250, was actually published today, May 6, 2026. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how a routine trip down a fish store aisle, and really one seemingly arbitrary price tag, serves as a masterclass in reading hidden potential.
And understanding the immense weight of long-term commitment. Eng's post is just a wonderful piece of writing because it takes the mundane, like a simple price sticker on a glass tank, and turns it into this cipher.
Yeah, it really forces you to examine the psychological mechanism of how we price and value destiny rather than just, valuing the present moment.
Absolutely.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with that cipher, because before we even get to the fish themselves, before we look at a single scale or fin, we really have to look at the clue that caught the author's eye in the first place.
The price tag.
Right, the price tag. According to Eng, when you walk into these local fish stores, you're going to encounter a lot of cichlids. And for you listening, if you aren't familiar with the hobby, a cichlid is this massive, incredibly diverse family of freshwater fish.
They're pretty much the bread and butter of the aquarium world.
Yeah, exactly. Ranging from tiny, peaceful little community fish to, massive, highly aggressive predators. And knowing that massive variance is key to understanding what Eng is actually experiencing here.
Well, what's fascinating here is that variance sets the stage for a very specific economic reality in the store. When there's that much variety, there has to be a baseline standard for the casual shopper.
Right. And Eng notes that most of the cichlids you'll find in these local shops are quite affordable. We're talking usually priced around MYR 10 or less. That's Malaysian ringgit, by the way.
So 10 or less is the baseline.
Yeah, that is the standard expectation for a small fish swimming around in a standard shop tank.
10 is the baseline of the known. 10 is safe. When a shopper sees a small fish priced at MYR 10, their visual expectation matches the economic reality.
It makes logical sense to the untrained eye, like small fish, small price.
Exactly. But Eng points out that if you are ever walking down those aisles looking at all these tanks and you see a variety that crosses the MYR 20 mark,
you need to stop walking.
You really do, because that MYR 20 mark is a massive clue. Eng writes that there is a very good chance you are looking at the juvenile version of a much, much larger species.
It's so counterintuitive. Think about the standard retail experience you and I are used to.
Right. Usually price correlates directly with current visible quality or mass. Like a larger television costs more than a smaller one.
A heavier gold chain costs more than a lighter one. But here, the local fish store is employing this completely different economic philosophy.
Yeah, the store owner is asking you to pay double the price for something that, to the naked eye, looks exactly like the cheaper thing swimming right next to it.
Right. So for you listening right now, imagine walking into a crowded, dusty thrift store. You're browsing the shelves, passing by all these plastic containers and cheap ceramic mugs priced at $1 or $2.
Oh, I love thrift stores.
Right, me too.
Yeah.
And then sitting there on the bottom shelf, you see this plain, unassuming, rather dull-looking small wooden box. But the sticker on it says $50.
Oh, wow. Yeah, your first instinct might be outrage or confusion.
Exactly. Like, why is this boring wooden box $50? But the price itself is whispering to you. The price is a signal.
It's telling you that there is a hidden value here that your untrained eye is just completely missing.
Maybe it was crafted by a master, or maybe it has a hidden compartment, you know? The premium price is the clue itself.
Yeah, because the MYR20 price tag isn't paying for the fish's current physical state. If we look at it purely in terms of biological mass right at that moment, it's virtually identical to the MYR10 fish.
Right.
What you are actually purchasing is time. You're making a down payment on its future scale. The store owner knows what this specific creature is genetically programmed to become.
Wow, so they are pricing in the destiny of the animal.
Pricing in the destiny. That's a great way to put it.
Well, that perfectly captures what Aang experiences next, because Aang points us to a highly specific example of this phenomenon. The fish that prompted this entire reflection is called the Zonatus Cichlid.
Or, using the scientific name Aang provides, the Vieja zonata.
Yes, VS is zonata. And Aang is very explicit about this. This fish did not catch their eye because of its stunning looks.
I don't know.
It caught their eye purely because of that higher price tag.
Because Aang knows how to read the aisle. When you see an entity that doesn't look like much but carries a premium price, your brain should immediately shift from evaluating the present to questioning the future.
You have to ask, what is this program to turn into?
Exactly.
So let's decode what that MYR20 actually buys you, because the transformation Aang describes is staggering. Aang contrasts the two entirely distinct phases of the Zonatus Cichlid's life.
And the difference is almost unbelievable.
It really is. Let's start with the present reality, the juvenile phase. This is the phase you are actually looking at when you hand over your money.
Right, the phase that makes the uninitiated shopper just keep walking without a second glance.
Based on the photos Aang has seen online, the fish in the shop are undeniably juveniles. They are described as having these simple, silvery gray bodies.
Just completely flat gray.
Yeah. And on that dull silver body, there is just a single, prominent, dark, horizontal stripe. That is the entirety of the visual offering.
Simple, silvery gray, one dark stripe.
Aang literally describes them as looking a bit small and dull right now.
It is the absolute definition of unremarkable. I mean, if you don't have the context, if you don't have that specialized knowledge of the Vieja zonata, you walk right past that tank.
Oh, 100%.
You look at the MYR20 price tag, you look at the dull gray single-striped fish, and you assume the store owner has just made a typographical error.
I want you, the listener, to put yourself in the shoes of a hobbyist like Aang. How does someone look at a tiny, dull gray fish with one stripe and mentally visualize the giant it's going to become?
It takes a lot of vision.
Because the future state of this fish, the adult state, is an absolute monster. Aang writes that they will eventually grow to their full size of 25 centimeters to 35 centimeters.
We were talking about an animal that is over a foot long, that is a massive creature to contain within a glass box inside a human home.
And it doesn't just get bigger, it completely metamorphoses. When they hit that 25 to 35 centimeter mark, they trade in that dull, silvery gray juvenile look for iridescent blue and teal scales.
That transition is just wild.
Imagine that, from flat gray camouflage to glowing iridescent blue and teal. And Aang notes that they are finished off with this nice reddish tint around the throat and chest.
And the physical shape changes entirely too, right?
Yeah, the mature form is described as bulky. It's aggressive. It is, in Aang's exact words, definitely a centerpiece of the tank.
The contrast is really breathtaking when you analyze it. You're moving from an animal that is essentially trying to hide a small, dull, gray thing with a disruptive dark stripe designed to blend in to an animal that demands to be the focal point of a room.
A bulky, aggressive, glowing teal and blue titan with a red throat.
Exactly. It's an extraordinary biological journey. But, you know, the most fascinating element here isn't just the biology.
No.
No, it's the immense biological patience required from the human being who buys it.
Oh, because you don't buy the iridescent teal centerpiece right away. You buy the gray stripe, and then you just have to wait.
You have to endure the dullness. You have to stare at a small gray fish for a very long time, actively nurturing it, feeding it, managing its environment.
All while holding on to the vision of what it will become.
Right. And Aang explicitly states an appreciation for this mature form writing. Personally, I kind of like their mature form. This is an exercise in extreme delayed gratification.
The hobbyist must act as a visionary investing time, space, and resources into a present reality that is entirely unremarkable.
Solely based on the promise of a spectacular future.
So, what does this all mean? Bringing a centerpiece into your life does not happen in a vacuum. It's not like buying a painting and just hanging it on the wall where the object remains static forever.
No, a painting doesn't grow. A painting doesn't suddenly demand more square footage in your living room over the next 3 years.
Right, which introduces what Eng calls the catch. This is the hidden weight of potential.
Ah, yes, the catch.
Because that incredible biological transformation we just talked about, the 35 centimeters, the bulk, the aggression it requires you to literally build a world around it.
It really does.
Eng writes, and this is the crux of the entire deep dive. The adult size is a massive commitment as you've to set up a large tank to accommodate them properly.
The catch isn't just a minor administrative detail. It is the fundamental physical reality of interacting with high-potential entities.
You can't separate the glowing teal scales from the architectural demands of housing a foot-long, aggressive predator.
Precisely.
I have to push back here for a second, though, and I want to throw this out to you listening. Is it actually fair to sell a MYR20 fish to someone who might not realize they are buying a 35-centimeter aggressive giant?
That's a really good question.
Right. Because we just talked about how standard retail works. If I go to a nursery and buy a small houseplant, I generally assume it's going to stay a relatively manageable houseplant.
Maybe put it in a slightly bigger pot next year, sure.
Exactly. I do not expect it to suddenly turn into a massive oak tree that shatters its ceramic pot, destroys my living room floor, and breaks through my ceiling.
That would be a shock.
If someone walks in, sees the MYR20 tag, maybe thinks, oh, it's just a slightly nicer small fish, and takes it home, they are totally unprepared for the oak tree that is about to tear through their living room.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that tension is completely justified, and it highlights a subtle danger in relying on coded signals. The store is relying entirely on the price tag, that seemingly small jump from MYR10 to MYR20, to act as a natural filter for serious hobbyists.
So it's a financial barrier to entry.
Right. But as your houseplant analogy perfectly illustrates, it's an incredibly subtle barrier. These things rarely come with a giant flashing warning sign that says this will eventually demand everything from your daily routine.
They come disguised as slightly more expensive, slightly more demanding small decisions. Like, it's just a small gray fish. How hard could it be to feed it a few flakes a day?
Exactly the trap. Eng uses a phrase that we really need to unpack. Massive commitment.
Let's do it. Let's analyze what the mechanics of that commitment actually look like.
When you purchase potential, you are inherently committing to scaling your own environment to accommodate the explosive growth of what you've purchased.
Because a 35-centimeter, bulky, aggressive cichlid cannot physically exist in the same environment as a small, silvery gray juvenile?
It would physically outgrow the space so fast. And given the aggression Eng mentions, it would likely destroy whatever else was in the tank with it.
Right, so you aren't just buying a fish, you are signing a contract for future labor.
You can take that a step further into the physical reality of the hobby, honestly. Yeah. To realize the fish's potential to ever actually see those iridescent blue and teal scales, to see that reddish tint on the throat, you, the owner, have to change your life.
You really do. You have to upgrade the tank to a massive volume of water.
You have to reinforce the filtration systems to handle the biological waste of a bulky predator. You have to dedicate a significantly larger physical footprint in your home just to hold hundreds of pounds of water and glass.
It's intense. The potential of the fish basically dictates the physical reality of your living space. And if you fail to provide that massive commitment, the fish will never reach that beautiful, mature form.
It will be stunted. The burden of potential doesn't just rest on the genetic programming of the fish. It rests entirely on the infrastructure you are willing to build for it.
So the store owner isn't just selling you an animal, they are selling you a multi-year construction project in your own home.
Exactly. And that makes you look at that little gray fish in the store so differently, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. You're signing the contract for all that future labor, all those tank upgrades, all that dedicated space, all while just looking at a single dark horizontal stripe.
It becomes the ultimate test of whether you are actually in love with the daily process of nurturing, or if you just want the aesthetic result.
Because the result is years away.
And it is going to cost you exponentially more than that initial MYR20 in glass, water, space, in time.
So after going on this massive journey from the deceptively cheap price tags through the stunning ugly duckling transformation of the Vieja Zonata,
Wow.
all the way to the crushing reality of the massive commitment required to house a 35-centimeter bulky, aggressive centerpiece,
Right.
Aang has to make a decision. After weighing the dull present against the spectacular, demanding future, the author has to decide whether to buy or not to buy.
It's the moment of truth that every visionary faces when they finally calculate the true cost of their vision.
And Aang's ultimate verdict on whether to get the Zonatus Cichlid is just one single, lingering line. Maybe, if I ever encounter them again.
It is a brilliantly honest conclusion. Notice that it's not a hard rejection of the idea, but rather this profound, calculated hesitation.
It is the hesitation of someone who truly understands the weight of the cipher they just decoded.
Exactly. Aang recognizes the hidden value, fully appreciates the majestic future form of the fish, but possesses the rare wisdom to acknowledge the immense burden of the catch.
They look at their current reality and realize they aren't ready to build that massive tank today.
Maybe, if I ever encounter them again. It leaves the door open for a future where they have the capacity, but fundamentally respects the reality of the present.
I absolutely love that restraint. Well, that wraps up our exploration of Notes on Fishkeeping, Part 250. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been great.
It truly is amazing how much profound wisdom about value, foresight, and responsibility can be packed into a quick blog post about a local aquarium shop.
It truly is. And before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've spent this entire time talking about a small, silvery gray fish that holds the secret genetic potential to become a bulky, aggressive, demanding giant. But take a moment, step away from the aquarium aisle, and look at your own life.
Let's turn that lens inward.
Think about the juvenile elements you're currently fostering right now. Maybe it's a new skill you're learning.
Or maybe it's a new professional relationship or an early-stage passion project.
Right. Right now, in this current moment, it might seem small, dull, and silvery gray. But it carries that higher price tag. It demands just a little bit more of your initial effort, your time, your MYR20.
Yeah.
When you look at those seemingly unimpressive, demanding things in your life today, ask yourself, are you truly prepared for the massive commitment required when they finally reach their full, bulky, demanding potential? Will you have the infrastructure and the space to accommodate them when they inevitably become the centerpiece of your life? Or are you just blindly buying the fish without ever considering the sheer size of the tank you'll eventually have to build?